scissors.
Yes, and no.
Eggman would never know about the last part until it happened.
You see, it was clearly a joke that the series was going for.
So, firstly, this is a very weirdly worded sin. This is clearly a joke the series was going for. Since I've covered Tony Sonic's video before, I initially assumed this was supposed to be kind of like my point against this section, where I pointed out how B-Man wasn't trying to act like Eggman would know about this, but was just joking about how the first two things Eggman said was true, but the last wouldn't end up being true. So I assumed the joke in question you're talking about was B-Man's, but then you added in that it was one the series was going for, and that's where I got confused. Is series referring to Chari's video? Because why refer to a single video, or better yet this single point, as a series? That's entirely unnecessary. It would somewhat imply that Chari's entire catalog, which I guess you could refer to as a series, is making this joke. But I also wonder if the series in question is actually referring to the Sonic series in particular. That opens up a can of worms though. What's the joke in question then? I presume that Eggman not knowing that it'd eventually get betrayed by Chaos is a joke because based on how this segment is set up, that would probably be the implication. If that was the case though, why would this matter? Because deep voice Tony Sonic's sin is that Eggman wouldn't know that he'd be betrayed, so B-Man offhandedly pointing out how his assumption that Chaos will work for him in the long term is void. Again though, that misunderstands that the sin isn't him trying to act like Eggman should have known about that, but point is, pointing out how the Sonic series is making a joke out of this, which, like, not really, because Eggman being unaware of this fact isn't played for laughs, but pointing out how even if that was what happened, wouldn't magically make Tony Sonic's point a bad sin. Mostly because you don't explain why it should, you just say it's a joke. I genuinely think I am reading too far into this, and that you are trying to go for a point similar to what I made, but the wording choice can definitely lead to assumptions far off from those implications. And if what I assumed to just be an implication turned out to be what you were actually trying to communicate, then I need to say it's not a great point. Anyways, since this is the first proper point in the video, I should address some of the problematic production problems on display here. There's two main notable issues that aren't the non-existent background and screen recording watermarks piling up on the right side of the screen. First is the audio. The audio quality for basically this entire video was putrid. Since the audio isn't native to the video, instead coming from your phone's speakers, it's all muffled and gross sounding. But honestly, I have no idea how you put this video together, as I assume based on how you make it clear that you previously took down this video, and this is a redone version of that. I'd like to believe this is a video done using a screen recorder, and that's why the audio quality is so bad. But I do wonder if you put it all together using a sort of editing software. If so, you could just download the video. Going back to you mentioning that this is a redone version of the video, I assume that this is a screen-recorded version of that original video, just with all the points you didn't want to keep in removed. But I feel the trade-off resulting in this audio quality was in exchange not worth it. Personally, I would have returned the video from the ground up to correct the audio mistakes, but I've been on this long enough. TLDR, the audio could have been much better.
Gambling, you know, for kids.
You're aware Casino Night Zone exists in Sonic 2, right? You know, the level based entirely off a casino?
Does it really negate the point? Sure, it's done before, but Sonic Adventure 1 was made for more of a kid-related game than the games in the Genesis.
What do you mean by Sonic Adventure 1 was made for a more kid-related games than the games in the Genesis? Not only is that a word salad of a statement, as I assume you meant it was meant for a more kid-related audience, but substituting that with game makes it sound like Sonic Adventure 1 was made for a kid that's more related to a game than a game on the Sega Genesis, which sounds like a golden YA storybook now that I think about it. But if the intention was to argue that Sonic Adventure 1 was made for a kiddier audience than the classics, firstly, you don't explain how it is. But even ignoring that, that clearly doesn't seem true having played the classics and Adventure 1 myself. They're both clearly targeted to a younger demographic based on the lack of more mature content. None of the classics are doing anything to make them any more mature than Sonic Adventure 1. In fact, it can be argued Sonic Adventure 1 is more mature given the heavily implied genocide of the echidnas and the chaos that chaos wrought upon Station Square, so the statement is entirely incorrect.
Rock, paper, scissors.
Chari, point.
Yes, Mr. McGarn, could you please give us this line? It goes, "Ah, Eggman! We really need you to give it your all for this one."
Eggman.
Got the game ships tomorrow anyway.
That's cringy.
You don't even explain why you sent it or why it's cringy. Hypocrisy at its finest.
And is a dick to bait.
No problems with the point here, but I do want to comment upon another big problem I have with this video's production, that being the absolutely jumbled visual audio editing. Because here we have one person's video playing, but the audio from another, and also segments where the video repeats itself. It's just very sloppy.
No shit, Knuckles.
Sins characters for pointing out the obvious, yet does the same thing with no shame. What?
This is literally a joke. Here are 30 sins, and now we can move on from this.
Okay, but just saying that, well, it's a joke, doesn't really take away from that sin. Like, just because Chari isn't serious when he points out things that are obvious doesn't make him sinning characters for characterization any less of a problem to Tony Sonic, especially since Chari still makes it a point to sin the game for that.
You again? Me? What about you? What about him what? Eggman didn't trick him.
Sonic points that out. On a side note, many Sonic fans claim that Knuckles is an idiot in the modern games, yet completely ignore moments like these where he's arguably dumber.
Doesn't mean it's not a problem with the game for rushing a line.
Wait, rushing the line? The line isn't rushed in any possible way. It's not spoken in a rushed manner, and the dialogue isn't written in a way where this line can be perceived as rushed, unless there is something I'm missing that you don't clarify. What B-Man was sinning was that Knuckles claimed that Sonic was tricked too when Sonic called him out for getting tricked, even though Sonic was, at least to him, not tricked. So this line being rushed thing feels completely out of left field since nobody was talking about that.
Did that sound effect really need to be used twice?
Yes, because Sonic's fall was longer than the sound effect.
It's still annoying to most people.
But nobody mentioned it being annoying. B-Man was just wondering why the sound effect had to play twice, and so deeper voiced Tony Sonic countersigned it by explaining that the scene was so long, it lasted longer than the sound effect, so it was played twice to compensate. Now that wouldn't take away from it being annoying to most people, but the intention of Tony Sonic's point wasn't to say it should, because whether or not it annoyed B-Man wasn't something B-Man expressed in his point, just confusion.
To the egg carrier too? Why doesn't he just do that?
Because it closes shortly after Zero is all the way up there. So if he did try it, he'd just fall back down.
You defend this game? He could have at least tried.
Okay, there's quite a bit more problems here than normal. Firstly, most of Chari's point is missing, so before we continue any further, let me play it.
Theoretically, couldn't Sonic ride the beam up to the egg carrier too? Why doesn't he just do that?
Because it closes shortly after Zero is all the way up there. So if he did try it, he'd just fall back down.
For real though, since Chari's point is so integral to what Tony Sonic and you have to say, it being cut up for whatever reason that may be is not a good thing. I can also hear a brief bit of the point you make before this one, where you state Tony Sonic defends the game too hard. Again, that's a little sloppy. Now, onto the actual point. Yeah, Sonic could have at least tried, but he still would have ended up with the result that Tony Sonic imagined, making his effort entirely pointless, something Sonic probably knows. Why should Sonic waste his time trying to hitch a ride on a beam that won't be there by the time he's even somewhat close to the airship?
Rock, paper, scissors.
Were they really too lazy to create a new environment for this flashback? This leads me to believe that Sonic and Tails met in the Mystic Ruins.
You've never been in a forest before, have you? Loads of forests look similar to each other.
Still kinda lazy to reuse an area from the actual game.
Okay, I know B-Man started this, but I do want to say that this practice isn't entirely lazy, per se. I mean, remember, this development team is creating a video game with 6 different characters, 11 levels spread across those characters, several huge hub areas, among many other things that the development team has to account for. When Sonic Adventure 1 was released in Japan in December 98, it was released in a very glitchy state because according to Takashi Iizuka, the game was made on a very tight schedule, and so they couldn't go back and fix many of the glitches before the release window. I bring this up because I feel the situation with the scene isn't a case of laziness on the part of Sonic Team, but just not seeing the necessity of creating an entire new area for one cutscene, especially when already on a tight schedule as is. Someone might raise the question, okay, so why not add it in during Sonic Adventure 1's worldwide release in 1999? Well, they had to spend that time localizing the game and fixing bugs, and if anyone wants to ask about the DX release for GameCube in 03, most of the development time would have been spent optimizing the game for GameCube, as well as updating the graphics, so adding a new background to this one not very long seed would most certainly not be a priority. Especially since in the case of DX, most of Sonic Team's attention would probably have been towards developing Sonic Heroes, which was due for release that December in Japan. This idea that it's lazy just doesn't sit well with me.
The controller is the one that unifies the chaos, but the number 7 is the same as the number of emeralds there are. Emeralds? Forgive me, but I don't think we've ever met before.
So why are you telling him all that?
Because she's nice.
She still needs to be more smart about things.
What? But her not being smart about things wasn't the problem Chari was having. It was simply that he didn't understand why Takal would feel the need to give this exposition to somebody who she seemingly doesn't even know, completely unprompted. She's not being not more smart by doing this, she's just doing something that seems very strange.
Rock, paper, scissors.
You're right. That's okay, though. I can use you as a guinea pig to test it.
Wait, you heard what he said, right? You realize he's up to no good, right?
A simple test is not enough to immediately assume something bad. Besides,
It's still annoying that Knuckles even considered to trust Eggman after the first time in Sonic 3.
Okay, well, Chari's point is that based on how Eggman states that he'll be using him as a guinea pig, it seems dumb that Knuckles wouldn't notice that Eggman is up to no good. Tony Sonic's countersin is that a simple test isn't enough to assume Eggman is up to no good. So countering that with, well, it's still annoying, doesn't really take away from his point because it doesn't counter the idea Knuckles should have immediately understood Eggman was up to no good based on how he called him a guinea pig. Undoubtedly, it can seem very annoying that Knuckles would consider trusting Eggman after what happened between the two in Sonic 3K, but if the intention is to wave away Tony Sonic's point, then it's not really doing much.
Rock, paper, scissors.
Oh, Sonic! Chasing bad guys!
Whoa, hold up. Your definition of the good old days is getting kidnapped and getting chased by Metal Sonic? Because he sure as hell isn't being chased by Sonic.
some of them forgot about the tons of games that came out between this and Sonic 3 and K. I mean, I don't blame you, but they still exist.
You realize the games between 3 and K and Adventure weren't considered canon, right?
According to who exactly? There is no source on this at all, and my theory as to why is because I doubt that's even true. Of course, these games aren't acknowledged within Sonic Adventure, but that's not to say they weren't canon in the first place.
Quietly hand over the bird.
No, never!
Why not?
Did a robot seriously just ask why not? Don't question it, just blow her up!
While she's holding the bird he's after? Yeah, that's smart. Besides, Gamma had already started changing sides after witnessing the other E-Series robots die and Beta being ruthlessly configured.
It's still stupid to say why not.
I don't see why it's still dumb. For once, I think Tony Sonic does make a decent point, because after what he's gone through, Gamma just seems curious as to why Amy would go out of her way to protect this random bird. It makes more sense than you seem to give it credit for.
Oh, you sure surprised me by having a Chaos Emerald with you.
Yeah, I mean, did you see how f***ing big it was?
That's what she said.
F***ing... Ugh.
Chari sends the same thing twice, cliche. Also, never bring that guy back to collab with you.
Not only Chari, but also Brandrick. Seriously, I would add multiple sins, but that's for a couple minutes.
Sir, I feel like an entire half of your countersin is missing here. Because what do you mean by just responding with only Chari but also B-Man? Because based on what comes before it, it doesn't make sense as a countersin, so I can only assume it's the first half of a larger one. You can't just release a video with points unfinished. Not only is that sloppy, but it's confusing for audience members who may not understand what you were trying to get at with your point.
Are you... What? Are you telling me you never noticed the big-ass pendant around the bird's neck?
Mainly because her hands were over it the whole time.
Very at least could have take a look at the bird as a whole, like most animal lovers.
Well, that implies Amy is an animal lover. Well, though I doubt she's an animal hater, to be honest. But more importantly, given how Amy is on the run for a good chunk of the game, I'm not sure what opportunity she would have had to just stop and look at it as a whole. Personally, I would have just slapped Tony Sonic with the fact that the pendant is shown to be really big, so I don't know how Amy could have not noticed it, especially with her hands covering it.
Rock, paper, scissors.
Chari points out things on the screen cliche.
Still disturbing.
Oh, excuse me. I don't know what we're talking about because your video doesn't even show whatever that is.
Rock, paper, scissors.
Still better than most songs on the radios these days.
Oh, sick burn, bro.
Word of advice, don't laugh at your own jokes. It only makes it obvious how bad they are.
It's considered by most people that the child singing is not good.
Okay, firstly, according to who exactly? Secondly, why does this matter exactly? Because Tony Sonic's point is that Chari and B-Man are laughing at their own jokes, and that apparently makes it obvious how bad they are. Even if what you're saying about Chow singing is considered bad by most people, that wouldn't take away from what Tony Sonic is saying. That's like saying, I like bread, and then you come up to me and say, well, I like bungee jumping. Like, that's cool, but who asked?
Closed off to us all. My true hope is that someday we'll understand each other.
Again, why show this to Gamma? It's not like it matters. He's a goddamn robot.
He's also connected to the Flicky that had one of the emeralds, and he was the only robot to capture Froggy who had both an emerald and a piece of chaos.
That shouldn't automatically make Gamma important to call.
My biggest issue with this point is just like, where's the elaboration? I feel like you're onto something with this point, but the lack of clarification as to why, even with what Tony Sonic states in mind, this wouldn't automatically make Gamma important to Tikal. Because of that, this point just feels like you going, well, you're wrong about that, Tony Sonic, and then calling it a day. You gotta elaborate on a point like this or else there's no argument, just you saying, nah, and that's it, because this isn't exactly a point that speaks for itself.
The preparations are now complete. Let's see if this works. Let's rise a wall against the wind that shall fall. Let the 4 cardinal gates close. Let the 3-forked road from the crown reaching onto the kingdom rotate.
So, are you my master?
Lunatic? What the fuck are you doing?
Hello, Keyblade Master. It seems you have summoned me into your domain. What do you need from me, my master?
You never really answered my question on why you're a servant now.
I'm broke and I needed funding for my lore, and college, but mostly my lore. Excuse me.
Wait, you have lore? Why didn't you invite me? I would have made your lore amazing!
I do not believe I'd like the person who wrote their own daughter out of their own lore partaking in my own.
It was an accident, goddammit! Anyways, I need you to cover this video for me while I go and try to be somewhat productive with clearing out my backlog.
I do not mean to be rude, my master.
A little late to be saying that.
I'll ignore that. But I cannot fathom the idea that you went out of your way to gather the necessary tools to create a summoning circle to summon a saber, only to make me do a duty I do when, well, I'm not on duty. Well, hey, free material.
You know what? After hearing you say free material, I'm gonna be that guy and cut you out of it by covering it with you, so you would feel less satisfied.
As a saber, it is my duty to carry your burdens alone. But honestly, I'm lazy and in no way dedicated enough to this job, so good. Let's co-op on this video.
Yay! So here's the rundown of the situation. A YouTuber named Joey made a rant talking about how Kappa set one of his videos to Made for Kids, expressing his distaste for the act, where a new commentator at the time by the name of Pumpkin Pie Commentaries made a commentary on it. And let's just say it was slightly problematic. So with all that being said, let's dive in.
Ha! Godzilla!
It's Gojira, you moron!
If you excuse me, I mean to complain about the way you handle this video clip. The handling of the audio is quite frankly deficient, given that the audio only floats in one ear, which if I'm going to be sincere is exasperating to my ears. I understand that this is more than likely only going to be an issue for headphone users, but I don't think that this excuses the problem here.
Also, another issue I noticed with this clip is, why is it here considering at this point in the video, we've gotten no context regarding the situation at hand, so placing this media clip here weakens the joke you're trying to make. Not that it would have mattered, considering how the joke you're making here of Joey getting attacked by Kappa Chameleon is very weak. Considering the clip goes on for way too long, thus dragging the joke out, but hey, placement is important too.
Alrighty.
I need a new recipe to work on. My bakery is running out of sweets for people to eat. Let's see if we can find something that looks good to eat. Oh. Huh. I don't remember this recipe being here. The dish's name is... oh god. Corn, Metallica, Megadeth, NASCAR, Joey Logano fan. Goodness, that's a mouthful. Let's see what the recipe has to offer.
Hang on a minute, commentaries are recipes now? Lunatic, what recipe do you use for your commentaries?
I use salt, and salt. I put a lot of effort into it, okay? Tons of people like it.
Interesting. For my commentaries, I have a special technique that I use for each one of them.
I did it.
That is a very unique way of handling commentaries. I must admit, for once I am impressed by you, Master.
Hello, my little pumpkin pies. Welcome to me getting mad about an incomplete recipe being in my gosh darn...
Hey Luna, wanna talk about how Maria is the best thing ever?
I apologize, but I must disagree. Actually, I'm never sorry. She's trash, Master.
Fuck off, man. She's a good, well-rounded character who's like a mother figure to Kurika at Shirabe.
It is truly unfortunate that she didn't live up to my expectations as a character. Also, may I ask why we are discussing mid-anime? Excuse me, I mean Symphogear, while the video is playing.
You see, it's very simple, my guy who's currently being an e-girl. It's because the way Pumpkin is providing context is by drowning her viewers with needless information, such as what year Kappa was made for 2 minutes straight, which quite frankly doesn't sound like a worthwhile experience considering earlier in the video, I gave them the necessary context in a much shorter time span.
I will sell you bathwater. I need money.
Sorry, but I already have my own bathwater, thank you very much.
Truly unfortunate.
What up, guys? Never mind, that was an epic fail.
Oh, you better apologize, Joey, because this carpet right here is indeed an epic fail.
This is quite possibly the ugliest carpet I have ever laid eyes upon. If I was summoned into a household such as that, the only duty I'd partake in is known as the floor's lava.
Heck, I wouldn't even leave my own strands of hair in this carpet.
Something rolling down my feed anyways, but that's not what today's video is about, so. Recently, I came across my YouTube channel, looked over my most recent diecast reviews. My most recent one was 2 weeks ago when I was out of town when I did a 187 diecast review on one of my NASCAR Authentics 187. I can't talk right now. I'm just furious right now.
Quick question. If this video angered you so much, why didn't you take a minute or two to calm down, write a script, and come back with a well-formed video? It would have helped your argument a bit more, and you wouldn't repeat yourself as much, which means the video probably would have been cut in half.
You know, if this was placed anywhere else in the video, then it would be an alright point. But with how this is placed at the beginning of Joey's video, I can't help but feel like this is jumping the gun too early, considering that not once in the clip you showed did we see Joey repeating himself. As if it's the unorganized nature, then the issue wouldn't be Joey not having a script, but instead him needing to learn about when to do retakes, so flub-ups as noticeable as epic fail wouldn't make it into the final product.